Ben stood at the viewing window of the transport ship, watching the Stellar Flight Academy grow larger in the distance. The massive station hung in the darkness of space like a silver wheel, its rings slowly spinning against the backdrop of distant stars. His hands pressed against the cool metal as excitement and nervousness fought in his stomach. "First time seeing the Academy?" asked a voice behind him. Ben turned to see another passenger, a tall being with purple skin and 4 arms. "Yes," Ben replied. "I still can't believe I made it in." The alien nodded. "Only the best pilots in the galaxy train there. I am Rox from the Thurian system." "Ben from Earth," he said, extending his hand. Rox looked confused for a moment, then carefully shook it with one of his 4 hands. "Ah, you are one of the humans," Rox said with interest. "I heard only 12 of your species were accepted this cycle." The transport docked with a soft thud, and soon Ben found himself walking through the Academy's main corridor. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved around him, some tall and thin, others short and stocky, some with wings, others with tentacles instead of arms. The diversity amazed him. An announcement echoed through the corridor. "All new students report to Orientation Hall 7. Ben followed the crowd into a large room with seats arranged in circles. A holographic display showed the Academy's layout while a stern voice explained the rules. Training would last 6 months. Students would learn navigation, combat tactics, and ship engineering. Only half would graduate to become certified pilots. Your instructor assignments are now active on your personal devices," the voice announced. Ben checked his tablet. His instructors were Commander Zara for navigation, Professor Kira for combat tactics, and Instructor Vera for ship engineering. He noticed that while other students had been assigned to different instructors, all 3 of his were the same ones. The next morning, Ben reported to Navigation Lab 12. Commander Zara stood at the front of the room, her blue skin gleaming under the bright lights. She was tall and elegant, with silver markings along her arms that seemed to shift in the light. "Today we learn basic stellar navigation," she said in a crisp voice. "You will memorize the standard jump routes between major systems." The other students in the class, a mix of different alien species, immediately began studying the star charts displayed on their screens. Ben looked at the charts too, but something felt wrong about just memorizing routes. "Commander Zara," Ben said, raising his hand. "What happens if these standard routes are blocked or damaged?" Zara's silver eyes fixed on him. "Standard routes are maintained by the Galactic Navigation Authority. They do not become blocked. But what if they did?" Ben pressed. "Shouldn't we learn to navigate without them?" A few students glanced at him with what looked like surprise. Apparently, questioning instructors wasn't common here. Zara was quiet for a moment. "Show me your understanding of stellar navigation without standard routes, human Ben." Ben approached the main display and began pointing at different stars. "If I know the position of these 3 bright stars, I can calculate my location using basic triangulation. Then I can plot a course to any destination by identifying the constellation patterns." "This method is inefficient," said a student with insect-like features. "Maybe," Ben agreed, "but it works even if all the navigation computers fail." Zara watched him carefully. "Interesting approach. Continue with the lesson." After class, Ben noticed Zara speaking quietly into a communication device, but he couldn't hear what she was saying. Combat tactics class with Professor Kira was held in a simulation chamber. Kira was smaller than Zara but moved with fluid grace. Her silver eyes seemed to see everything at once, and her pale skin had an almost luminous quality. "Today you will practice basic evasive maneuvers," Kira announced. "Each student will pilot a simulated fighter against automated attackers." One by one, students entered the simulator pods. Ben watched as each pilot followed the same pattern: sharp turns, barrel rolls, and defensive formations exactly as shown in their training manuals. Most survived the simulation, but barely. When Ben's turn came, he strapped into the simulator and felt the familiar weight of acceleration as the virtual ship responded to his controls. 3 enemy fighters appeared on his screen, approaching fast. Instead of following the standard evasive patterns, Ben did something unexpected. He flew directly toward the enemy ships, then at the last second, cut his engines and used maneuvering thrusters to spin his ship sideways. The enemy fighters, programmed to expect standard responses, flew past him. Ben restarted his engines and found himself behind all 3 attackers. The simulation ended with his victory in record time. When he emerged from the pod, the other students stared at him. Professor Kira approached with a thoughtful expression. "Explain your tactics," she said. "The enemy was programmed to counter standard maneuvers," Ben said, "so I used non-standard ones. This could be dangerous in real combat," warned a lizard-like student. "Standard tactics exist for good reasons." "True," Ben nodded, "but if everyone uses the same tactics, enemies learn to counter them. Sometimes you need to be unpredictable." Kira made notes on her tablet. "Human Ben, please remain after class." When the other students left, Kira studied him carefully. "Your people have an unusual approach to combat." "We've had to be creative," Ben said. "Earth has many different environments and challenges. We learned to adapt." "Tell me more about human military history," Kira said, settling into a chair. Ben found himself talking about various human conflicts, how smaller forces often defeated larger ones through unexpected strategies, and how human generals throughout history had won by doing the last thing their enemies expected. Kira listened intently, asking detailed questions about human psychology and decision-making. It seemed odd that a combat instructor would be so interested in his species' history, but Ben enjoyed the conversation. Ship engineering class with instructor Vera took place in the Academy's maintenance bays, surrounded by actual spacecraft. Vera was the most mysterious of his instructors. She appeared humanoid, but something about her features seemed off, as if she were wearing a mask that didn't quite fit. "Understanding your ship's systems could save your life," Vera said, gesturing to a training vessel. "Today we learned power distribution and system optimization. The lesson focused on managing a ship's energy between engines, weapons, and shields. Each system had optimal settings, and students practiced balancing power loads according to standard protocols. Ben quickly mastered the basic concepts, but then started experimenting. He discovered that by slightly overloading the shield generators for brief periods, he could create more protective power than the manual suggested was possible. "Instructor Vera," he called out, "what happens if I redirect life support power to engines during combat?" "That would be extremely dangerous," Vera replied. "Life support failure means death. But only if the battle lasts longer than the emergency oxygen supply," Ben pointed out. "For short engagements, it could give crucial extra speed." Vera approached his workstation and examined his modifications. "Show me your calculations." Ben demonstrated how emergency power rerouting could provide temporary advantages in critical situations. His approach violated several safety protocols, but the math was sound. "These techniques are not taught in standard curriculum," Vera said carefully. "Sometimes standard isn't enough," Ben replied. "If my ship is damaged and I need every advantage to survive, I'd rather risk it than definitely lose." Vera made extensive notes, asking probing questions about human engineering philosophy and risk assessment. Like his other instructors, she seemed unusually interested in human thinking patterns. As weeks passed, Ben noticed patterns in his instructors' behavior. They often asked him questions that seemed to have little to do with piloting. They wanted to know about human culture, family structures, and social relationships. Sometimes they would exchange glances when he gave answers that apparently surprised them. Ben also began helping fellow students who were struggling. Rox, his purple-skinned friend from the transport, had trouble with spatial orientation during combat maneuvers. The Academy's solution was additional simulator time using the same techniques that weren't working. "Try this," Ben suggested during a break. "Close your eyes and imagine you're floating in water. Feel which way is up and down with your body, not your eyes." "Water?" Rox asked, confused. Ben explained how humans learned balance and orientation through swimming, and how they could apply those same instincts to three-dimensional movement in space. It sounded strange, but Rox was desperate enough to try anything. The technique worked. Rox's simulator scores improved dramatically over the next week. Word spread, and soon other struggling students approached Ben for help. There was Maya, a crystalline being whose species had slow reflexes but excellent pattern recognition. Ben taught her to predict enemy movements by watching for subtle cues rather than trying to react faster. Gox was a timid creature whose people were naturally peaceful. Ben helped him overcome his fear of aggressive maneuvers by reframing combat as protecting others rather than attacking enemies. The instructors watched these interactions with great interest, often observing from a distance when Ben worked with other students. Their attention made him slightly uncomfortable, but he figured they were just monitoring student progress. One evening, Ben was in the Academy's recreation area when he overheard a conversation between two senior students from warrior species. "The humans are strange," one said. "They help weaker students instead of focusing on their own advancement." "It makes no sense," agreed the other. "Why waste time on those who will likely fail anyway?" Ben realized that most alien cultures viewed education as pure competition. Students were expected to focus solely on their own success. The concept of helping others seemed foreign to them. This observation led to an uncomfortable thought. If his instructors were so interested in human behavior, and if his approach to training was so different from other species, maybe he was being studied rather than taught. The idea bothered him, but he decided to continue as before. Whether or not he was being observed, he would stick to his principles. A major test arrived in the 4th month of training. Students would participate in a complex simulation involving a disabled civilian ship under attack by pirates. The goal was to rescue survivors while defending against multiple enemy fighters. Most students followed standard rescue protocols: establish a defensive perimeter, dock with the civilian ship, evacuate survivors to a safe distance, then engage the pirates with superior numbers. When Ben's turn came, he studied the scenario carefully. The civilian ship was large and difficult to move. Traditional evacuation would take too long, leaving everyone vulnerable to pirate attacks. Instead of following protocol, Ben flew his small fighter directly into the disabled ship's cargo bay. He used his ship's communications array to coordinate with survivors, turning the civilian vessel itself into a fortress. The survivors operated defensive turrets while Ben used the larger ship's superior firepower to drive off the pirates. The simulation ended with all survivors rescued and pirates defeated, but Ben had violated numerous safety regulations and standard procedures. During the debriefing, Instructor Vera questioned his tactics. "You risked your ship and crew by entering an unknown vessel." "The risk was calculated," Ben replied. "Standard evacuation would have resulted in casualties. My approach saved everyone." "But you ignored established protocols," pressed Commander Zara. "Protocols are guidelines," Ben said. "They shouldn't override the primary mission of saving lives." Professor Kira leaned forward. "What if your unconventional approach had failed? Then I would have failed trying something that might work instead of succeeding at following rules while people died." The 3 instructors exchanged meaningful looks. After a long pause, Commander Zara announced that Ben had passed the simulation with the highest marks in Academy history. That night, Ben couldn't sleep. He walked through the Academy's corridors, eventually finding himself in an observation lounge overlooking the main docking bay. Through the large windows, he could see transport ships coming and going, carrying supplies and personnel. As he watched, he noticed something strange. A small, sleek vessel docked at a restricted platform used only by Academy administration. 3 figures emerged from the ship, moving quickly toward a private entrance. Even in the dim lighting, Ben recognized them immediately. His 3 instructors, but something was different about their appearance. They seemed to be wearing different clothing, more elaborate and formal than their usual Academy uniforms. Ben pressed closer to the window, trying to get a better look, but the figures disappeared into the station before he could see more details. The next morning brought an announcement that all students would participate in a final evaluation exercise. Unlike previous simulations, this would involve real ships in actual space, with instructors monitoring from a command vessel. As Ben prepared for what might be his last test at the Academy, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important about his instructors and their unusual interest in human behavior. Whatever they were really studying, he suspected the truth would soon become clear. The Academy's mysteries were about to be revealed, and Ben sensed that his life was about to change in ways he never expected. The final evaluation began at dawn. 23 students remained from the original 50, who had started training 6 months ago. Ben suited up in his flight gear alongside Rox, Maya, Gox, and the other survivors. The nervous energy in the preparation bay was thick enough to cut. Commander Zara addressed the group from a raised platform. "Today you will demonstrate everything you have learned. Your mission is to escort a convoy of civilian ships through the asteroid field of Kerlan while defending against simulated pirate attacks." Professor Kira stepped forward. "You will work in teams of 4. Communication and coordination are essential. Any team that loses a civilian ship fails the evaluation." Instructor Vera activated a holographic display showing the asteroid field. The field contains real hazards. Navigation errors could result in actual damage to your ships. Emergency protocols are in effect. Ben was assigned to Team 6 with Rox, Maya, and a warrior-class alien named Thak. As they walked to their fighters, Rox whispered, "Something feels different about this test." "How so?" Ben asked. "Look around," Rox said quietly. "Too many instructors for a simple evaluation. And why use real space instead of simulators?" Ben glanced around and realized Rox was right. Dozens of Academy staff members were present, far more than needed to monitor one exercise. Many wore formal uniforms he had never seen before. The 4 teammates climbed into their fighters and ran through pre-flight checks. Ben's ship was a standard Academy trainer, equipped with basic weapons and shields. Nothing fancy but reliable. "Team 6, you are cleared for launch," came Zara's voice through the communication system. Ben's fighter lifted off smoothly, joining the formation as they moved away from the Academy. Ahead of them, 5 large civilian transport ships waited in formation. These vessels carried no weapons and depended entirely on the student pilots for protection. The convoy entered the asteroid field slowly. Huge rocks tumbled through space in complex patterns, some as large as buildings. Ben had to constantly adjust his course to avoid collisions while staying close enough to the transports to provide protection. "This is more dangerous than any simulation." Maya's crystalline voice crackled through the radio. "Stay alert," Thak growled. Pirates could attack from any direction. They had been flying for 30 minutes when the first wave of enemy fighters appeared. Unlike the predictable attack patterns Ben had experienced in simulators, these ships moved with intelligence and coordination. 6. Enemy fighters approaching from Sector 4, announced Gox from his position guarding the convoy's rear. Ben immediately noticed something wrong. These weren't the standard training drones usually used for exercises. The ships moved too smoothly, responded too quickly, and their weapons fired with genuine intent to damage. "Team 6, engage the enemy," ordered Professor Kira from the command ship. Thak and Maya moved to intercept the attackers while Ben and Rox maintained protective positions around the civilian ships. The battle erupted with blaster fire and missile explosions lighting up the asteroid field. Ben watched in horror as one of the enemy fighters scored a direct hit on Maya's ship. Her shields flared and died, and warning lights filled her cockpit. "Maya's down!" Rox shouted. "Her ship is losing power." Without hesitation, Ben broke formation and flew toward Maya's position. An enemy fighter was moving in for the final attack, its weapons charging for a killing shot. Ben placed his ship directly between the enemy and Maya's disabled fighter. The enemy's blast hit his shields instead, draining them completely but giving Maya time to restart her systems. "Ben, your shields are gone," Maya called out. "Get to safety!" But Ben had noticed something that changed everything. As the enemy fighter passed close to his cockpit, he caught a glimpse of the pilot through the transparent canopy. The being inside looked exactly like one of the Academy's maintenance workers. These weren't pirates or even training drones. They were Academy personnel pretending to be enemies. "This isn't a simulation," Ben said into his radio. "These are Academy ships with Academy pilots." "What are you talking about?" Thak demanded. Before Ben could explain, a massive explosion rocked the asteroid field. One of the civilian transport ships had suffered a direct hit and was venting atmosphere into space. "Transport 3 is going down," Rox reported. "They're requesting immediate evacuation." Ben looked at the damaged ship and calculated quickly. Standard rescue protocol would take at least 20 minutes. The ship didn't have that long. "Team 6, maintain defensive positions," came Commander Zara's voice. "Rescue ships are en route." But Ben could see the truth in his instruments. No rescue ships were coming. The transport would explode long before help arrived, and everyone aboard would die. He made a decision that would change his life forever. "I'm going in," Ben announced, turning his ship toward the crippled transport. "Negative," Zara's voice was sharp. "Maintain your position." Ben ignored the order and flew his small fighter directly into the transport's main cargo bay. The space was barely large enough for his ship, but he managed to squeeze inside just as the bay doors sealed behind him. He emerged from his fighter to find dozens of terrified civilians from various alien species huddled in the cargo area. Many were injured and all were struggling to breathe as the ship's life support systems failed. "How many people?" Ben asked the transport's captain. 47, the captain replied, his scaled face showing panic. But your ship can only carry 4 passengers. Ben studied the cargo bay layout and had an idea that violated every safety regulation in the Academy manual. What if we remove the seats and pack everyone into the cargo hold? That's impossible, the captain protested. There's no life support in your cargo area. There is if we reroute it from my main cabin, Ben said, already moving toward his ship's control panels. It's dangerous, but it might work. Working frantically, Ben modified his fighter systems. He removed the passenger seats and connected emergency life support to the cargo area. It would only work for a short time, but that might be enough. Everyone into my ship, he called out. It's going to be tight, but we can do this. The 47 civilians squeezed into Ben's small fighter like pieces of a puzzle. It was uncomfortable and risky, but everyone fit. Ben climbed back into his pilot seat and started the engines. His ship, designed for a maximum of 4 passengers, now carried nearly 50. The engine strained under the extra weight and warning alarms sounded throughout the cockpit. Ben, what is your status? Professor Kira's voice came through the radio. All civilians rescued, Ben replied, carefully maneuvering his overloaded ship out of the transport's cargo bay. But I need immediate docking clearance. My life support won't last long with this many people. As Ben's fighter emerged from the dying transport, something unexpected happened. The enemy fighters that had been attacking suddenly stopped their assault and moved into escort positions around his ship. What's happening? Rox asked over the radio. Before anyone could answer, the enemy fighters removed their weapon covers, revealing Academy identification codes underneath. These weren't pirates at all, just as Ben had suspected. All student pilots return to the Academy immediately, Commander Zara ordered. The exercise is terminated. Ben's overloaded fighter limped back toward the Academy with its precious cargo of rescued civilians. His improvised life support system held together just long enough to reach the station's docking bay. As Ben helped the civilians out of his ship, he noticed something strange. Academy medical teams were already waiting for them, as if they had known exactly what would happen. The rescued civilians were quickly escorted away without being allowed to speak to any of the students. Report to Conference Room Alpha immediately, Instructor Vera told Ben as he climbed out of his fighter. Conference Room Alpha was one of the Academy's most secure chambers, used only for the highest level meetings. Ben had never been inside before. As he entered, he found his 3 instructors waiting for him around a polished metal table. But something was different about them. They wore elaborate uniforms he had never seen before, with intricate designs and precious metals. Most shocking of all, each wore a crown-like device on their head. Please sit down, Ben, Commander Zara said gently. Ben remained standing. Who are you really? The 3 instructors looked at each other. Then Zara spoke again. My name is Princess Zara of the Carillion Empire. These are Princess Kira of the Valdoran Republic and Princess Vera of the Nexus Coalition. Ben stared at them in shock. Princesses? But you're Academy instructors. That was our disguise, Princess Kira explained. We volunteered for a special mission to study human pilots and determine whether your species poses a threat to galactic stability. We've been observing you for 6 months, Princess Vera added. Everything here was designed to test human capabilities and psychology. Ben felt anger rising in his chest. So this was all fake? The other students, the training, everything? The other students are real, Princess Zara assured him. They don't know our true identities. Only you discovered the truth, but why? Ben demanded. Why the deception? Princess Kira activated a holographic display showing star maps with battle formations. In recent years, human-led fleets have defeated much larger alien forces through unpredictable tactics. Our peoples became concerned about human military potential. The Galactic Council decided to study humans directly, Princess Vera continued. We needed to understand if your species would become conquerors or allies. Ben looked at the 3 royal aliens. And what did you decide? That's what we need to discuss, Princess Zara said. Your actions today confirmed something we've suspected for months. Princess Kira stood and began pacing. Every alien species in the galaxy follows strict hierarchies and protocols. Students compete only for themselves. Warriors prioritize victory over all else. But humans are different. Different how? Ben asked. You help others even when it hurts your own advancement, Princess Vera explained. You taught struggling students instead of focusing on your grades. You saved 47 civilians by risking your own life and violating every safety regulation. Princess Zara leaned forward. Other species would have followed orders and let those people die. But you couldn't accept that outcome. Ben shook his head. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, Princess Kira said firmly. We tested this scenario with students from 12 different species over the past year. Every single one followed orders and let the civilians die. Only humans consistently choose to save others at personal risk. The revelation hit Ben like a physical blow. You've been running this test for a year? How many people died? The civilians were volunteers, Princess Vera said quickly. Academy personnel who knew the risks. No one actually died, but the other species didn't know that. They chose to follow orders rather than attempt rescue. Ben sank into a chair as the full scope of what had happened became clear. So what happens now? Do you report back that humans are dangerous? The three princesses exchanged glances. Princess Zara spoke first. We've already submitted our report to the Galactic Council. We recommended immediate alliance with humanity. Alliance? Ben asked, surprised. Your species doesn't just think creatively, Princess Kira explained. You inspire others to exceed their limitations. Look at what happened with your fellow students. Princess Vera activated another display showing training records. Rox improved his spatial orientation by 300% after you helped him. Maya developed new combat techniques that her species had never used before. Gox overcame centuries of pacifist conditioning. You didn't just succeed yourself, Princess Zara added. You made everyone around you better. That's not a threat to the galaxy. It's exactly what we need. Ben studied the three royal aliens. Why are you telling me this? Why not keep it secret? Because we want you to become the first human ambassador to the Tri-Empire Alliance, Princess Kira said. Your three kingdoms are prepared to offer humanity full membership in the galactic community. But only if you accept, Princess Vera added. We need someone who understands both human and alien perspectives. Ben thought about everything he had experienced at the academy. The friends he had made, the challenges he had overcome, and the tests he had passed without even knowing he was being evaluated. What about the other human students? He asked. They'll graduate and become certified pilots as planned, Princess Zara assured him. Many will likely join the new human-alien cooperation fleet we're proposing to establish. Ben looked at each princess in turn. These weren't the stern instructors he had known for 6 months. They were young, intelligent leaders who genuinely cared about the future of their peoples. I have one condition, Ben said finally. Name it, Princess Kira replied. No more secret tests. If we're going to be allies, we need to trust each other. That means honesty from the beginning. The three princesses smiled, and Ben realized it was the first time he had seen them look truly relaxed. Agreed, Princess Zara said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting Ben had taught her months ago. As Ben shook hands with the three alien princesses, he understood that his real education was just beginning. The academy had taught him to be a pilot, but life had taught him something more valuable, that the greatest strength wasn't in superior weapons or tactics, but in the willingness to care about others and act on that caring. The galaxy was about to discover what humans could accomplish when they worked together with alien allies who shared their values. Ben smiled as he realized his greatest adventure was still ahead of him. Outside the conference room windows, stars beckoned with the promise of exploration, friendship, and a future where different species could learn from each other. The academy had been the beginning, but the real journey was just starting.